One of the most beneficial things that you can do on any production or project is assume every failure point and figure out what you're going to do if that thing happens. This is really, really important because a lot of times you can plan, you can do all the pre-production, you can get everything set and ready to go, and inevitably things are going to go wrong. You have to think ahead. What could go wrong? How am I going to fix it? How am I going to handle it? Because then you can start to prep mentally. And guess what? A lot of those things may end up happening, and thankfully you'll have a plan in place of how you're going to handle it. But there's also the things that you aren't going to be able to forecast and foreshadow, and those things are going to happen too, and you've got to handle those in the situation. So it's really important, as much as humanly possible, assume every possible failure point. And this is really mentally exhausting for some people. I think you don't want to think about all the worst case scenarios. You only want to think about an amazing project and everything going well. But if you don't think about all those failure points, when they happen, you are not going to be ready for them, and there's going to be too many of them that are going to happen. A light can go out, a camera can go bad. I had just the other day, I would have never assumed this, but I'm assuming it now. On the GH4, in the battery slot, for whatever reason, there's a screw in there that came out, preventing me from putting a battery in the GH4. Well, if you can't put a battery in it, you can't power the GH4, what are you going to do? Thankfully, I was able to fix it in the field, and that was one of those problems that I couldn't have assumed was going to happen. But hopefully, now that I told you about it, you can be prepared for it too. A good way to potentially fix it is just leave a battery in the GH4 compartment. Maybe not like all the time. You don't want to store it that way for like a year, but like if you're shooting with the camera pretty regularly, just leave a battery in there because that screw basically it popped out and it's at a really odd angle that I have no idea how you're supposed to actually screw it back in. I basically had to take a pliers in there and kind of pinch it and twist it. Very, very slow process, really annoying. But I was able to get the screw back in, but I'm going to say it was not easy. And that's one small, tiny little screw could have potentially ruined the entire project. Thankfully, it didn't. But hey, small things can make a big impact. So that's why it's really important. Whatever you think might go wrong, be prepared for that. And then you can end up seeing your weak points. Maybe you something might happen. You could anticipate, oh, this could go wrong, and I actually don't know of a way to solve that problem or to handle that situation. Let me Google it real quick. Let me go see if there's a YouTube video talking about that. And then you can start preparing and getting extra knowledge and information ahead of time, which is always good. It's always good to be learning and growing and getting more information. And then even if that problem never happens, you still have that information for the day that it might happen. And that's also very, very valuable. I think it's very easy to get to the point where you're like, oh, you get in a pattern, you get in a groove, you're kind of doing the same thing over and over again. And if you're not figuring out those failure points, you're going to kind of get used to what you're doing. And that's maybe a comfort zone thing, which is good. It's always good to feel comfortable and confident in what you're doing, but that can also prevent you from learning and growing. So if you kind of play out the scenarios of things that can go wrong, you could potentially find areas where you're a little bit weaker or not as knowledgeable, and then start building those things up, and then start thinking, now that you have that information, you can anticipate other failure points. This happens time and time again. No shoot is ever perfect. No project ever goes 100% according to plan. Something always goes wrong. Even if it's a tiny little screw, something is going to go wrong, and you have to be prepared for it because that is your job as a professional. You have to handle the problems. Problem solving is the name of the game. So anticipate those failures, assume that things are going to fail, and then mentally prep yourself with the knowledge or information that you need or the tools that you need. That's another one. How many times, do you have a screwdriver in your bag? Do you have a multi-tool? Do you have a set of Allen wrenches? Just having the right tools to be able to fix problems that come up is really important. There are some key staples that pretty much everyone has, like gaff tape and trying to think, A-clamps, stuff that's like, pretty useful and versatile. But there are other things that, you need just as frequently, but maybe aren't at the front of your mind of like, oh, do I need a set of Allen wrenches? Yeah, because for whatever reason, engineers like to design all their stuff with hex screws. So you need Allen wrenches to put things together. Happens all the time. And you know what? You never have the right size. So getting a full set, that's a really simple thing. But those are the kind of things that I'm talking about. Think of everything in your bag. Think of everything that can go wrong, whether it's with actors, with lighting, with cameras, with audio, whatever it is. try and go through it all beforehand, and so you can prepare for when it's going to happen, because trust me, it's going to happen.